What's up, y'all? Anybody listening? Oh my goodness. Am I on time? Just a bit early. They say if you're on time, you're 10 minutes late. What's up, you guys? It's Ron Raphael, the Black Gen X man, newly created tag. It's always been Ron Raphael. Pretty transparent with my name. But for the purposes of this channel, I named it the Black Gen X man. It's an accurate description. And it also ties me to the audience, kind of plots me in the timeline in this country. Ooh, that's what happens when you drop water in front of you on my desk right here. But anyway, yeah, Gen X man. The timeline. So as you see tonight, I'm kind of chilling. I try to place this at a spot and a time that it would be beneficial for everyone in the United States, so to speak. Obviously in California, we're 3 hours behind the West or East Coast, pardon me, here on the West Coast. And being that there are some people that I would like to bring along, not leave behind, that might be kind of upset that I'm going live late. But I think this is a good time, Black Gen X man. I think it's a good space. A grown man space, grown woman space, so to speak, the time frame anyway, so that we can sit down and have real conversations of all types, most of which coming from me. It's gonna be straight up, straight at you, factual, and unapologetic. So I also thought I'd invoke my Kevin Samuels quietly. I had a suit on today and I kind of changed out of it. Though I'm versed in every level of fashion and presentation, you know, that's the thing we use for business. Well, Kevin Samuels wore his suit during his podcasts. And he created this atmosphere that was kind of like, he wanted to make the ladies drop their panties as soon as they came in his pad. And, being as distinguished and tall and all the features that you guys might want, might happen. Yeah, slightly a little bit foo-foo, but other than that, a man that should be congratulated and praised and always mentioned for what he has done for black men. I know black women don't like him, especially the ones that are approaching the hill or who have a bunch of skeletons in their closet or who have been having sex since they were 15 years old. You won't like him. But what I did like about him personally is that he was a remnant in the way he thought and how he dealt with people, of how we used to do it in the past. And it was kind of eerie how his communications with women in particular blew him the hell up. And this is not what the show was about, you know what I mean? But I thought I'd mention it because I did watch him. And he was one of the people that helped open another world of perspective in regards to women. My naive self, just being a cool ass, not worrying about nothing, was not the right approach. So, but what this show is about, man, you guys, it's about abortion. The title of the thumbnail is Abortion, a Licensed to Kill, 007. And it has been breaking my heart lately. And the information I've been hearing and the way that women are so vested in the ability to end a life, to kill a life. And I know y'all don't want to hear these words either. But if something is alive, if it's not, was it dead inside of her? Okay. So if something was alive, then it was ripped out and it was killed. There's nowhere else in the world, religions, societies, that they allow this, and then they allow the justification of it. Here it's become happenstance. The right to murder an unborn child. And I understand there are circumstances. Men are logical. I get it. There may be times where it might be unavoidable or it might be the best thing to do. And I'm not going to mention those things. It's irrelevant. It's the sentiment that 1, 2, 3 abortions, an average of 2 for black women, have been taking place since the early 1970s. And what set this off for me, why I knew it was something I had to talk about, is because it affects our community the most. So let me show you how and why. And as we go, please bear with me. The sun is setting on the West Coast, and natural light is the best light. And there's a natural light right out here on the other side of this window. But the sun will set soon, so I'm gonna have to make an adjustment at some point. So bear with me. I'll let you know. Maybe it'll be a break or something. With that being said, the thing that set me off, let me see if I can pull that up and put this in complete and full context for you. It was Meg Thee Stallion. That's my computer down here in front. It was Meg Thee Stallion that set this off. And it was a clip I saw of her on a channel by a lady known as Crimson Cure. Now, there are very few women that I listen to about anything these days. It is the worst path for a man who is enlightened to take. However, I've been listening to her for some time, the only one. And it's because I think she understands the role of women and what benefits them the most. So she's over there talking about that. And she's also talking about correcting that behavior that has removed our women from their responsibilities in our community as a black woman in a community, that responsibility. And I know many will argue, what is he talking about? Well, I know. Many of y'all are delusional if you don't understand how society stayed together and how both sides make sacrifices to move things forward for the next generation. It's not only about us. So that being said, I'm listening to Crimson Cure. I wanted to give her a shout out. Go over to her channel if you have time. Guess I'm thinking I'm somebody. I'm mentioning other people and whatnot. But I have watched her for some time, and she's pretty good at what she does. Very effective speaking to women, but men support her and listen too. If nothing else, to chime in to see what the subject matter is. And on this day, the subject matter was, I can't freaking believe it, it's going through her mind, is that an award was given to the woman stallion. By the way, a stallion is a male horse. So this woman, a rapper by the name of Stallion, I don't even want to say her whole name, the one that put my boy Lanes in jail for I don't know how many years for shooting herself in the foot, or her friend or whatever, because if a man wanted to shoot you, it more than likely wouldn't be a woman, and it probably, a slap would do. So I don't even get it. Sounds fishy to me, and then sends this man off to 20 years and gets back to her life the same way they do when they have abortions, like they never destroyed a life. So all she did was destroy his life on this end, on his living side. But it's something that women do all the time in the name of their happiness or their career goals. They've convinced you to abandon the most important thing God has given you to do on this planet. And somehow society has forced you to deny your own biology. So much so that you are now receiving an award and becoming the poster child, female, the poster woman, and an advocate for abortion. So So let me play that clip for you right now. Let me see if I can pull it up. And it is,
Craig
see
the
if this,
Stallion and got
so we got, so let me go back to this here.
out of hand. Um, I'm not gonna waste too much time. This was apparently at some form of a award gala that was hosted by Planned Parenthood, and it's real short. But I'm gonna let you just take it in. Just take it in. Here we go.
We need to create communities where women can receive sexual and reproductive health care with the love, respect, and compassion that they deserve. I promise to continue to do my part and use my platform to break down barriers and empower women all around the world.
Okay, so I'm not going to play her rebuttal or her comment.
Planned Parenthood, y'all. And then we got
I mean, do I need to say anything about that? That if that doesn't make you cringe, if that doesn't make you cringe, because what's going on here, she's becoming an advocate. And who watches her? Now, as much as I try to keep my kids away from her and this music, it permeates the airwaves. And just like us, when we went to parties in high school, Two Live Crew, remember them from Miami? Luke and his boys? Well, they had a song called Hey, We Want Some Pussy. And in California, we were freaking our butts off to that. So I'm no prude. However, I don't think any of those rap stars, MC Lyte, any other rap star, would have been convinced to advocate and sponsor Planned Parenthood, abortions, basically. So why did they choose her? They choose her because she's the epitome of the ratchetness in our country, and that ratchetness is destroying our community. Young girls are following her. So go ahead, have all the sex you want, be as much of a hoe as you want, shake your ass, because she does, all the time. And then when you won't, because you're liberated and you can do whatever the hell you want, like men do, I can give away my value as much as I want to. And then the ramifications of that, I'm not even concerned. Who cares if I'm a vessel that should be appreciated and protected? The vast majority of our women are coming out the other way now. And here's Meg Thee Stallion, the damn spokesperson for it all, and all the women like her. So it really bothered me, man. And I'm just so happy that I don't have a bunch of twerking women on the other side that my children are growing up with. His mom wasn't a twerker, though I'm sure she did a little bit of that, as women do and as men appreciate, but certainly in the right circumstances. But not every minute 2 beats dropped and you in the middle of the street in Crenshaw on Martin Luther King, you jump out the car and start shaking your ass. And that'd be the same woman who wants a man to take care of her, respect her. So this is the madness that started me on this path for this conversation and this stream. So let's take a look at some of the other variables. You notice what I said is happening, so I'm kind of prepared for it. So work with me. We'll make adjustments as we go if you guys don't mind. But as I was saying, some of the things that stood out to me. So let's talk factual. Let's talk factual statistic information that will blow your mind. Information I'm sure you've been trying to run from as a woman and deny it when it happens, and who made these stats. And it's funny when the stats don't speak to what you think you should be doing, regardless if the stats say that it's wrong or that it's ridiculous. You won't believe it. But these numbers you can corroborate and find on your own. Okay? So as current as we speak, the numbers that they have been able to collect from all the sources, they have come up with over 63,459,781 abortions in this country since Roe v. Wade. And I believe that was 1973. If you look at this, this is averaging somewhere around, it's been what, about 70 years? So about 10 million, if you want to average and round off, children, unborn children, have been eliminated every year. 10 million. You know how big a number that is for someone to, if you were to count that at the clinic, one woman in, how long it takes? Suck the baby out, throw it in a petri dish, wherever they throw it, send it to the lab so they can perform stem cell research. We'll talk about that in just a moment. They're not throwing the fetus away. They're using it for scientific research. Oh, you didn't know? Or didn't you not care what they did with it? Either way, they just threw your baby in the garbage. But we'll talk about stem cell research, Planned Parenthood, and the agenda of the white supremacists in regards to the black community. But right now, just for a brief moment, we're talking just the numbers. So that's the total number for all women in the United States since 1973. There were abortions prior to that, and I'll have a chart for you here. I will show it to you in just a moment. That way you can see it for yourself and how the numbers have added up over the years and have come to. So literally hundreds of thousands a year on an average of 10 million a year over the past 70 years. So, in the black community, of that number, of that 62 million, 63 million, we're hovering around a third of that number. And the number for the black community, black women, and I'm not sure if that really comprises the entire black community, because black women have more babies than black men. There's stats and statistics for that too. But that's not what this show is about today. Black women are having more babies than black men, which simply means that someone else is coming in being Pookie and Ray Ray that's not black. They're having sex with other men that's not claiming them, nor the children. They're not marrying them. And then they join the pool of the other women that are black when it comes to this 19 million black lives that were lost. This number is roughly 3 times more likely than any other female in this country of any ethnicity. Makes you wonder, what is it about black women that they make it so that they abort their child 3 times as often as the rest of the female population? I got a premise for that. Because if the love between the black man and the black woman were in place, pardon me, in the way it should be, that's my cameraman. I called Canon today to see if I can fix this. But they told me it wasn't a fix, so I'll have to figure out another way, another camera. But 3 times more likely than any other woman, as far as how many babies have been killed and murdered through abortion. Black women are the #1 killer of babies. and have the nerve to talk about how violent men are. You know how cold you need to be to have an abortion without cause, without problems surrounding it. Just simply, I laid down, had irresponsible sex multiple times, because it doesn't normally happen the very first time. And then after that, I decide that, hey, instead of being responsible, I'm going to kill this child. Do you know how cold? And the killer of this equation is that they execute the exact same thing at least 2 times on average. Do you know how devoid of love you would have to be for, pardon me, for the man, black men in general? If the love was solid, would we abort less babies? Let me put it to you like that. If black women didn't have this warfare and this general level of disrespect for the black man in general, would they abort babies at the same speed? What I'm trying to do here is show how the building blocks of disrespect, of feminism, of education, of free benefits of all types have led to a decision 2 times in a woman's life that in any other time in history or in any other country throughout the entire world, even now, would be forbidden. How did they convince us to take the poison pill, to Jim Jones the juice? Why is it always us at this position of getting the worst out of a society and our women acting like they don't understand what's going on? It's the craziest thing. So in 1973, Roe versus Wade, that decision was made. And not too long, within the last few years, they've repealed it. Now, they haven't gotten rid of abortion. They just basically said it's within the state to decide, within the jurisdiction of each state, that if they have the desire or the power or the legislative power to decide on what happens with abortion inside of their state. So that's what's going on right now. So by race in 2019, black women were responsible for 42% of the abortions in the United States, to the tune of 26,233,000. No, that's what they comprise. Pardon me. The black female population in the United States. So I think I'm botching this one, but we'll move on in just a second. So the percentage of the population of black women are 7.7%. Yet they comprise 42% of all the abortions. Makes you wonder, right? So black women, of this 63 million over the past 70 years or so, black women are responsible for 26,233,108 abortions. That is an astronomical number, almost twice any other ethnicity. You can combine white women and Hispanic women in this calculation and barely match the abortion numbers of black women. For white women, the number is 19 million. And for Hispanic women, the number is 13 million. But meanwhile, the total number of women in the United States are 168 million. And that was reported in 2022, sorry. And the total number of black women, of that 168 million, is 25,410,000. Black women make up approximately 32% of all the women in the United States. So that's just giving you some context. 7.7% of the entire population in the entire country, and 15% of all women. Yet, the abortion rates for black women, even though they comprise 15% of the female population, our abortion rate is 42% of the total number. Makes you wonder. So I wasn't aware of this before this revelation, so to speak, that I decided that I had, you know what I mean, about that Meg Thee Stallion. So I sat down for a few days and did a bunch of research and came up with these numbers. But there's some other stuff that I'd like to share with you. And in particular, let's start with the abortion numbers. And here they are. These numbers here, see if I can get it together. Give me just a moment. See, these numbers here represent abortions starting here. Let me make sure I'm in the right place. Starting on this side, you can see the year. This chart starts at 1909. Now, obviously, abortions were being had throughout time, I'm sure. But in 1909, it wasn't part of the landscape of America, nor was it tracked, and I'm sure the number was minuscule. It's a medical operation. We weren't advanced enough to do this on a mass scale, even if women desired to do so. But this is back where men were men and in control. And so we didn't let women abort their babies. Okay? So anyway, back to the chart. Now you'll find in 1909, the first or the second column are live births. How many people were born? So let's fast forward until the first recorded abortion in the United States. So as you can see here, as early as 1926, because if you look at this chart, these are abortions. All right? These two columns here. So as we go down, we'll notice that the first recorded abortion was in 1926. There were two, and the numbers were minuscule. All the way up until, as you can see, 86. They're climbing, but they're less than 100. Now, these can be justified in any way. Complicated pregnancy, because until a certain period in time, women were dying in childbirth. It was modern medicine, men, by the way, who figured out how to make childbirth less fatal. And so women live, and so children do more through childbearing times. So as you can see, 1944, we're at 706 total over here. This is the total. So as we go, you'll see, okay, every once in a while there's a creep. Now this number 7 here obviously represents some type of cutoff, right? Something happened this year. Who knows? But I didn't have the time nor the inclination to research these types of things, because that's not what this talk is about. But what I did want to show you is that as the years went on, that abortion increased. Now here we are. 1969, the year of our Lord, the year I was born. And my folks from Inglewood, California, what's up? To my class. Right here is where you find that the numbers all of a sudden started to rise. 1969. Is that the beginning of the sexual and drug revolution in this country, where people were doing every measure of drug and going to big raves, that what we call them now, and parties, and basically America was turning into something else than it was before. The transition from being a traditional society is marked here. So you'll find that the numbers began, but in 68 there were only 4,626. In 69, 20,000. So by a measure of five times the amount, the numbers increased the next year. Abortions must have become more accessible. Because before a law becomes written, there are submissions of this law, debates on this law. And while they're debating this, the people that are going to be affected by this law haven't stopped their practices. In fact, they may have even increased them, because it may come to a point where we can't do this. So maybe that's what that number represents. But by the time 1973 hits, the number in 1972, let's go back, 20,069, 1970, 56,000 aborted babies killed, ripped out, sucked out, and not being able to live throughout their entire lives, who they were supposed to be. In 1971, the number went from 56,000 to 207,000. It more than quadrupled. I mean, what happened? What happened? Women weren't having sex before, and then all of a sudden the next year they started having. What happened where women became irresponsible with their pussies? That's what that tells me. I'm gonna fuck as much as I want and not worry about the ramifications. This is the delusion of women thinking they could do what men could do. But this is the ramification of it. This is the reason why you can't do what we do. Is because if you do what we do, you're gonna end up pregnant. And then you're gonna kill the baby. We don't do that. You have all the rights. And I'm talking directly to you. You have all the birthrights. Men have none in this country. And with that responsibility and with that right comes responsibility. And that's one thing women don't ever want. They want benefits. They want control. Isn't it a shame that it's your body, your decision, and you decide to abort a child? That's what you're doing with your decision-making power? And then going clubbing that night to have an abortion celebration, I guess, with your homegirls. I don't know how this shit works. But I know it would weigh on me for my entire life that I have murdered a child. But somehow, women are some of the coldest people on the planet, because if you can do this, you can do anything. So 71, 20,000, 207,000, sorry. 1972, 320,000. 1973, Roe versus Wade, 294,782. After Roe v. Wade, the very next year, it's almost as if women went out and got pregnant on purpose so they can have a fucking abortion. The number went from 706,012 aborted children to 795,579. So between 73 to 70, In 73, 294,000. The very next year, 716,000 babies were aborted. I mean, what accounts for that astronomical jump from one year to the next? Did women just simply decide, I'm going to get pregnant and have sex raw so I can go get my first abortion? I can't wait. It's like they're giving away money or something, and bitches are standing in line for it. So here we go, 1975. And trust me, I understand that there could be circumstances when a woman might have to do this. As I say, I'm logical. It makes sense to me. But to the tune of 760,000, 16,000, and the year before that, it was 294,000. What happened? So anyway, after Roe v. Wade in 1973, the numbers kept rising. So by the time we get to and through the 70s, the numbers on an annual basis are in the millions. What the hell? As much as women try to shame men for whatever they do, how do you sleep criticizing men and you guys are doing this shit all the time? You shouldn't have shit to say. Regardless of what men doing. We ain't killing babies. I think that trumps it all. 1980, 1.5 million. 81, 1.5 million babies aborted. And guess what? Of these numbers we're looking at, 42% are black women. But we only comprise 7.7%, 15% of the female population, and 7.7% of the entire American population. So let me figure this out. So black women I mean, it's like a purse or something. It's like a fashion. We all got to go get it. I don't understand. Back to my chart. So by the time 1990 comes around, the numbers started to drop. The types of birth control over these years as well, through the 70s, 80s, and so forth, all the way up until today, they continued adding birth control types, almost to the tune of now, today in 2024, that women have almost above 20 different types of ways to prevent or to eliminate pregnancy. So maybe this is reflected in that number. And as the 90s went on and our culture became more degraded, and what they were doing to us was really fucking up our community, more and more abortion. So they stay somewhere, on an average, somewhere around 1 million. And this chart was afraid to add them all up. It's funny, as much as I was looking around for information, they wouldn't give it to me all in one place. Some searches, I couldn't even get information on women through Google and abortion. They're protecting your ability. They're shielding off people from being able to criticize and look up pertinent information. They're keeping us in the dark. I had to rummage through a bunch of stuff to find charts and numbers on things like this. Meanwhile, everything else was readily accessible. So this chart was particularly alarming. And it summed it up for me. I was like, wow, the more I went through this, the sadder I became. Does this bother you at all? Please let me know. If you can say anything, if you're there. Does this bother you in any way? Black community? I'm not talking to white people. I don't care what they do. So let's go back to what they do with the fetus. What they do is they take it and they use it for stem cell research and other research. Stem cell research is connected to white supremacy. They've been trying to figure out how to make their genes last the test, and it hasn't been making it. We know that the black genetic code, the black genome, is dominant. And they've been trying all kind of ways to figure out how to remove themselves from being a race that is dead at the moment. The birth rate is going down in the white community. And if you know anything about birth rates, it suggests and tells the future of a society. When birth rates go down, a society is on decline. And that civilization is on the brink of becoming extinct over time. So not only are their birth rates going down, and they're trying feverishly through all types of ways to get hold of our genetic material. And to the tune of 26,233,108 abortions, they've been able to conduct research on our children. And I'm calling them children. I'm giving them a soul, a personality, a face. Because the thing that they have done with children, with this argument, with this bullshit argument about when life begins and doesn't begin, it's only to justify and to dehumanize the baby, the child that's inside of women, so that they can do what? If we dehumanize it, then we can kill it with no conscience. And women sit back and wait for that justification. And no matter what logic and what is humane in this, it is overlooked by the vast majority of women in this country. It is so sad. I got something else for y'all. A few of them, actually. So let me get through this before this turns into a 14-hour podcast. And it took, and I'm not an advocate of white supremacy, obviously. It works against me. I'm not conservative. I'm not liberal. I don't tag any of these societal tropes on me that could influence my behavior and for them to predict how I will vote and all this. No, I've got a brain and I can think, and I'm not connected to any party as a black man, especially if it bears no fruit. But I'm here doing my research, and I come across a clip. And this foundation, this group of people that I'm referring to here in this clip, this is a conservative room. Look inside this room. White people are vested. They know, to hell with what our women are talking about. Forget that shit. We need y'all to do what y'all supposed to do, which is have babies. Fuck all that. Now, if we got to create movie after movie and put you on a pedestal, and then dirty Mac black men to keep you on this side, we'll do everything we need to do. But by God dang, it was to make sure we can get white babies birthed in this country. So look at this room. I'm not affiliated in any way, but the argument is irrefutable. Listen to this.
It is a bloody stage indeed. It is a stage that has seen the slaughter of 60 million human children since Roe v. Wade. 60 million. Why do some of us find this slaughter to be unthinkable?
By the way, fair use on all of these clips, some of them coming from private sources, others coming from YouTube. And so I'll link all of these in the description down low and give full credit to who and where it came from. I have to do that legally from what I understand. So it's done. Here we go. Back
And
to
an injustice. Well, because every single one of those 60 million were innocent and defenseless human beings. And it is always wrong to directly and intentionally kill innocent and defenseless human beings. It's as simple as that. You know, our position is very straightforward. That's our whole position. I just summed it up. Are you killing an innocent, defenseless human being? Then it's wrong. That's it. The pro-abortion person here will respond with a few different moves. The first is to try to dehumanize the unborn, of course. He'll claim that the unborn child is not a human person and thus does not have the same moral standing and cannot make the same moral claims for itself that a, quote, real person can make. Now, the idea that an unborn child isn't human, which is something that you do hear from pro-aborts, even supposedly educated ones, is such a silly, absurd, anti-scientific notion that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It's simply a scientific fact that the being in the womb is indeed a being, a living being, and it is a member of the human species. Now, we know that because all living things have to be a member of some species or another. If an unborn child isn't human, then what species is it? Now, oftentimes what you'll hear is, well, it's not a human, it's a fetus. Well, that's like saying it's not a human, it's a boomer, okay? This is which maybe kind of works sometimes, but this is a stage of human development. Now, as for living, is it living? Well, there are only 3 states of being that a physical entity can be. And I think this holds true for the most part, except maybe at the quantum level. That would be most things are either alive, dead, or inanimate. Now, is the unborn baby inanimate? No. Inanimate objects don't grow, they don't develop, they don't move on their own, they don't consume food. You know, this podium right here is inanimate. It will never be anything other than this. It will decay and fall apart. You could cut it into pieces and build it into something else, but it's never on its own going to grow into something else because it's inanimate. Is the unborn child dead? Well, no, we know it's not dead because if it was dead, then we wouldn't need the abortion. So that leaves only living. Okay, so the baby is a living human. We've established that. We've settled that argument already. That's good. What about person, though? Well, this is a little bit more interesting because the pro-abortion individual, if he has any degree of sophistication, will probably concede that a, quote, fetus, or undocumented infant, as I like to call them, he'll concede that it's a living human, but he'll say, okay, fine, it's a living human, you're right about that, but it's not a person. And he'll say that it's not a person because it's still developing and it is entirely dependent on its mother for survival, and this, he will say, means that it lacks moral standing. But this view that personhood is acquired by degree and that it's forfeit if you are entirely dependent on someone else for survival clearly implicates...
So, that's just a little bit on the argument about whether it's alive or not. And it's so sad that the person fighting for the lives of the children aren't the ones that birth them. Isn't that crazy? I thought it was the craziest thing. So men are defending the unborn fetus in this particular clip. And is he right? Does that make sense to you, what he mentioned? So anyway, moving on. Okay, so what I have here is the next clip.
There's a new report out about abortion statistics in Ireland. Lots more people living than might have if there'd have been a different sort of law.
Yeah, fascinating. An organisation called Both Lives.
Okay, so let me go back just a little bit. This particular clip here is from Ireland, and it talks about the
living than might
abortion
have
rate
if there'd been.
and how it was changed and the effect it had on this society. So let's listen in really quickly. There's something important in here that I need you to hear.
There's a new report out about abortion statistics in Ireland. Lots more people living than might have if there'd have been a different sort of law.
Yeah, fascinating. An organisation called Both Lives Matter have done some calculations and worked out that because we don't have the 1967 Abortion Act legislation in Northern Ireland, that effectively around 100,000 lives have been saved that otherwise would have been aborted under more liberal laws than they have in Northern Ireland. What was interesting about this and why it's hit the news just now is that 100,000 figure is obviously a very large figure, and it's been challenged. It was challenged by organisations that are very supportive of abortion, and they challenged it through the advertising authorities. And the advertising authorities did some independent research to see if that claim of 100,000 lives was actually correct or not, and whether it could.
So all types of tricks. So accurate numbers are being posted, and then just like the cigarette campaigns and the sugar in your food and the processed food campaigns, it's all good for you. They're going to lie to you. They're going to figure out how to lie to you until somebody confronts them with bold, hard evidence. And that's what happened in Ireland. If they're saying, now by comparison, obviously Ireland is a speck, one of the smaller states in the United States. So this number they're talking about is for a very small portion of the globe. But even to them, that number, that 100,000 number, seemed astronomical. I wish it was 100,000 here. It's over 63 million since Roe v. Wade. Next clip. Share something here with you. Buchanan Santorum. This is a clip. And this is a black woman interviewing a Republican politician. So I'm not Republican. Fuck them. I used to vote Democrat until I realized, what am I, stupid? Why am I voting on the woman's side and never getting nothing back? And they keep walking around with more benefits, and black men keep walking around like we're just dumb assholes for voting for nothing and getting nothing back, by and large. That's how it is for the black community. But the black men, they make sure we don't get anything. They'll give women a little bit so they can come back for the next election. Just a little bit. You know what I mean? But in this one, Pat Buchanan, you may not be familiar with him, but the link is down there. You can look him up and find out who he is and what he's been doing. But he is definitely a politician. So that being said, let's listen to what he's saying. He's talking to a black interviewer, a news person, and you may recognize her. But he's telling her the truth. But she's sitting there mad as fuck. Just because she's a woman. So let me see, a black woman in particular. So let's play this and see what we get out of it. Come on. Where's my sound? Hold on. Sound is going on this. Interesting. Okay, back again. Let's try it one more time. This one played. Let me see.
Be upheld. And the fascinating thing that's just come out now is that actually.
Okay, so let me go to the other one. Pardon me. One more try and then I'll move on. I'm trying to make a point here with this clip.
There is
here it is.
something to back up what he said. Disproportionately, African American women are the ones having abortions, and it's African American unborn babies who are being destroyed at a disproportionate rate. And this whole, if you will, birth control and abortion movement goes back to a fairly shameful period in American history back before World War II, the eugenics movement, which had such dreadful slogans as more from the fit and less from the unfit. So his facts are correct, and he's a presidential candidate, however, so I think that Senator Santorum should be the one to defend his remarks. They don't offend me, but I would let others who believe they do make the allegation. And what Santorum...
Correction. This is a correspondent, a Republican correspondent, not a politician. He's speaking of Santorum.
Was saying was, look, that was exactly what was done to African Americans for 250 years. And you go to Dred Scott, they are not persons under the Constitution. They don't even have a right to be a citizen. And finally, after under the 14th Amendment, that was struck down, 13th and 14th Amendment, and they were declared persons under the Constitution.
This
the same rights to
discussion,
life,
Pat
liberty, and
Buchanan, this
everyone else.
discussion and bringing race into...
So Santorum is saying that you've constricted it and taken that right of personhood and life away from a whole class of folks, unborn children, and a disproportionate number of those are African American.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to concentrate on. He was saying that the numbers are disproportionate, which they are. And he also, but look at her face.
Get the
One
shack.
more time. Hold on. I'm not looking for that. Okay, look at her face. I'm going to freeze it on her face as he gets into the factual part. So he's talking, right? Look at her
Movement,
face.
which had such dreadful slogans as more from the fit and less from the unfit. So his facts are correct, and he's a presidential candidate, however, so I think that Senator Santorum should be the one to defend his remarks. They don't offend me, but I would let others who believe they do make the allegation. And what Santorum was saying was, look, that was exactly what we...
Look at that woman's face. Look at it. That's about a black woman seething on factual information. He's simply telling her the facts. But she doesn't want him to specify and put the light directly on black women. He's talking to a black woman.
Was done to
Look at her
African
face.
Americans for 250 years, and you go to Dred Scott, they are not persons under the Constitution. They don't even have a right to be a citizen. And finally, under the 14th Amendment, that was
Look at her.
struck down, 13th and 14th Amendment, and they were declared persons under the Constitution.
This
the same rights to
discussion-
Okay,
life.
and he's right. The same thing that dehumanized, black people so that they can do what they wanted to do to us. They did with the fetus. They dehumanized it to make it easy for you to take it out of you. And that's all he said. Black people were considered non-people, savages. And therefore, we can do what we want with them. Dehumanization. It's sad that we're getting played with the same game they did to us. They just handed it to us and we're using it like the biggest, ratchet tool in the kit. I wonder what else we're going to use dehumanization for besides the black man in particular. And you know what? Our women dehumanize their black men. We don't have souls, feelings. If we are beasts of burdens, and soon as we're not useful for providing you with stuff, what does it take to socialize a whole group of women in a society to be completely selfish and also be convinced to hate their men so much that they can also hate the offspring, even after they're born? This has happened. I've seen it with my own two eyes. Women screaming at little boys and treating them poorly, and me hearing them say, "You're just like your daddy." I was a hairstylist over 30 years. I had women sitting in my chair all the time. Well, 20-something years, excuse me. My license is for 30 years now, but I've done hair over 20-some odd years. No longer. Please don't call me. I ran out the shop. I couldn't take it no more. I should still be there making hundreds of thousands of dollars by now, but that another story, another time. So that particular clip, and she tried to interject, but as a skilled whoever he is, he didn't let her cut him off. Black men, don't let women cut you off when you're talking. keep it rolling and keep it strong. The next thing I want to share with you, we're gonna keep going. I don't even have to riff this time. I can just play. This one is of a conversation on black women in the church. All right? And here it is. Now we're on the church. As Christian as all of our women claim to be, and all this shit they talk about, how they, are so sanctimonious and religious and close to God and all this other stuff. More than half their women in that church on any given Sunday have had abortions. And that they call themselves Christians. It's the craziest thing. So here we go. This is what I wanted to show you. This is black women in church, and on this subject of abortion.
Surgical service, so I oversee abortion, advanced care, and things of that nature.
You're a black woman, you're a Christian.
I am.
You're also a strong advocate for abortion rights.
Yes.
Is that a conflict?
To other people, I'm black. I'm a woman. I love God. I go to church, and I believe in abortion.
The same crazy bitch shit you get all the time in every conversation you have with a woman. I'm going to do what I want, and nobody can tell me what to do. That's basically what she's saying. I can make the rules for Christianity and for my community. Women don't have to do what's in the Bible. What you going to do to me? Imagine being married to this woman. I'm sure she doesn't have a husband. Because how would you communicate with this shit?
Anna and Sherilyn are really similar in so many ways. Two moms who believe that Black Lives Matter and that God is real. But on that one subject that drives each of their activism, abortion, they're on opposite ends of the aisle. The issue uniquely affecting their community. Black women have the highest abortion rates, 17% higher than white women. Within the black church, it sometimes feels like no one asks, no one tells.
A number of the impoverished single mothers that I went to church with,
no one asks, no one tells. We're moving on to the pastors in a minute, trust me. Because the spiritual leaders in this place are men, 99% of the time. And they're standing on the pulpits. They're standing up there. They know the law of God, but yet they never speak of it. And when they do, they sugarcoat it and they deflect and they do all type of shit. Why? Because they want them women to keep coming back and paying tithes and populating the church. Because if the men are gone because they don't want to be around the women that's there and the church doesn't speak to them ever, what happens when you talk bad to the woman? They got the pastor by the balls. Say something I don't like.
who were suffering under a need for reproductive rights in order to make ends meet. But our pastors from the pulpit would force upon them the idea that God would see you as guilty. And yet, here we were, all together still. So in a lot of ways, we preach some...
As he should. A woman shouldn't feel guilt for aborting a child. You're going to feel guilty? Why are you making her feel guilty? Why are you shaming her? Because it's a shameful thing, goddammit. When do men get spared of the shame of their acts and get coddled on it? All the way to the extent of killing a child. Oh, we're not going to make you feel shame for killing a child. Hell yeah, we should.
Thing that I want to call complex. It was an interesting and strange hypocrisy.
For both Kawana and Sherilyn, the issue is deeply personal.
At what point did you stake out a feeling about abortion and whether it's right or should be even allowed?
After my second one.
After your second one?
After my second one.
You did have a second
I
abortion?
did.
Didn't I tell you? That's a church woman. You gonna walk in the church and she gonna act like she's sanctimonious, and you supposed to call her sister this and sister that, and then you supposed to treat her like a gem and all that. Meanwhile, she done killed 2 of God's babies. And I want to go to church and sit next to her?
I sat on my floor and I wept. At that point is when the Lord started to really work on me, because I was tired of being a subpar Christian. I was tired of saying I was a Christian and not acting like one.
Your argument is not just anti-abortion.
I realized that I couldn't just be pro-life, that I also had to be pro-black in order to ensure that for generations to come, that we still exist.
Do you think abortion should be...
Oh my goodness, after 2 abortions, now you want to join the community. That's like what women are doing these days. They're going to college, they're making their money, and oh, by the way, I'm 30 now. I think I want to join back the community and find a husband and after you've been fucking for the past 10, 15 years. You think he wants that? That's a family woman? That's a wife?
Illegal?
I think abortion should be unnecessary.
People often say she has 5 kids and she fight for abortion. How does that?
So this woman, these women are what black men have to deal with in regards to abortion. And guess what? We have no rights. We can't tell them no. They decide. If we tell them no, we could tell them no. But they can do as they do with everything else, do what they want to do. And if that's kill a child, that's what I'm going to do. Moving along. Abortion and the black community.
The pro-life movement of today is primarily, it's a human rights movement. And it is a continuation of the civil rights movement. And that's not me just saying that. I mean, if you look at the history, look at Jesse Jackson. Everyone would say that Jesse Jackson was a crucial part of the civil rights movement, and even now today, obviously a voice in the black.
Now, this is a commentary on black politicians, in particular Jesse Jackson, who was running for president. Before he was a candidate for presidency, he was pro-life. But by the time he was on the ballot for an option for the Democratic Party, as a pastor now, he changed his stance. Why? So he could cater to women, black women in particular, and get their vote. So if we keep catering to black and women in general, black women in particular, we're going to do this to the extent that we destroy our society. That's how much we want a woman's vote, and the political power behind that is business. Who wants to tick off business? You know how much money is made from abortions? Do you know how much stem cell research comes from abortions? Do you know it is a billion-dollar industry? So when it comes time to talk about it, it's not a moral conversation. It's a conversation that businessmen use their influence to shape. And in this case, they took a black politician and he sold the fuck out. A pastor. So these are the people in control of our community. Well, I couldn't even say that. Perceived as a leader in our community.
Black community. Jesse Jackson was pro-life, and he spoke out against abortion, and he called it black genocide. And he even said what will happen 20 years from now. He said this in the late 70s, early 80s. 20 years from now, if we continue aborting our children without even a pang in our conscience, where will our nation be? Now, unfortunately, he got involved with running for president, and he had to do that as a Democrat, and so he became pro-choice to go along with that party. Because of that, there was this split where now so many people just do not associate the pro-life movement with people like Jesse Jackson, with black leaders like Dr. Dolores Greer with
Okay, that's a long-winded way of saying he sold out. Jesse Jackson sold the hell out. So I'm going to support killing babies so I can get Democrats to vote for me for, you sold your soul. A pastor. Okay, go ahead. I'll let you kill some babies so I can be president. What the? Well, let me correct this. All right, we're back. This is wearing me out, man, but it has to be done. Next. So here we are. Pastors. The introduction of Jesse Jackson running for president on the highest level in the land. Now we have a pastor of a church, a Baptist church. He claims to be pro-life. But what he did is deflect. So listen, he starts talking about how he's pro-life, but then he had to look at some other stuff, which was chiding the government for preventing or being against abortions or even being concerned about it, but at the same time, once the children were born, then they completely forgot about them. So his argument is not about abortion itself. It's about, well, what about the children when they're born? You don't do nothing for them, which has nothing to do with the argument. But here he goes. The reason why he's doing this, check the constituency. There's one man here on this side, and there's another man. But once you look through the clip, and I'll play it in just a second, you'll notice the audience.
To get her master's degree, she went on to get her doctorate degree, and then she had a child.
So let me go to the beginning. So this is this part.
That I am really pro-life. I believe in the sanctity of life, but I also believe in a woman's right to choose. The Bible is clear. In Deuteronomy 30 and 19, it tells us that we have a choice.
The Bible says, no, the Bible don't say you got a choice. Obviously, we have a choice. But the Bible ain't say you got a choice to kill a child. When did that happen? Yeah, you got the choice to do evil. You got a choice to worship Satan too. So what does that mean? Why is that used in this context? As a pastor, mind you, I'm pro-life, but, ain't no but for a pastor. But guess who's in his congregation? Watch, there's very few. So he's definitely concerned about patronage. So I have to tell the women in this room something they like. Okay, let's not talk about abortion, even though we're talking about abortion, because that's not what you want to hear. But as a grown man, as a pastor, as a man of God, it's not about what they want to hear, and it's not about preserving his parish. It's about preaching the unabashed, unadulterated truth. So let's listen to this, Mom.
God said, I put before you life and death. He tells us, yes, to choose life, but it is our choice. I struggle with this position. I struggle. When I was growing up, child, there was no ambiguity. There was no room. I was strict.
Oh, shut up. When he was growing up, there's no ambiguity. What happened? What happened? The Bible's clear. He's a man of God. What changed his mind, I wonder? That's a pastor. Sugarcoating and delivering bullshit to our women. And you wonder why men don't want to go to church. Here's another one. This one's a shorter clip. Listen to this fool. Sounds like he been hanging out with women. Maybe even have panties on, because I never heard a man say some shit like this. But listen. Hold on, technical difficulty.
You got preachers up here talking about they are against abortion. Good, so don't have one then.
You heard that? You heard that shit? I'm against abortion. Good, he's a pastor. Don't have one. But listen to the room. Watch who's listening, and listening to the cheer.
Preachers up here talking about they are against abortion. Good, so don't have one then. But don't.
I'm sure he's gonna use, I can do bad all by myself. All that shit. They do that shit all the time in church. And women lap it up. You want an abortion? You against abortions? Good, don't get one. Sound just like a bitch. That's a pastor. I'm not even gonna play the rest of that. And that was my end of the clips I had to play, just to paint a mosaic and to put it directly and squarely upon you. And in all this talk from these pastors, as I listened to them, it was more than one, several of them, I heard no talk about managing your womb. Don't carry before you marry, and keep your legs closed. So all this, they're talking about, we can't take away the ability of a woman to make a choice. But what happened to the choice before that? The choice when you decided you want some meat in you, and you didn't care what the ramifications were for that moment of lust and pleasure. And then you did it again and again. Some women have 2, 3 abortions. None of them spoke about that. You know why? Because they scared of women. What the hell's gonna happen? Huh? If we tell women the truth and they get mad and stop coming to church, what they gonna do? Open their own churches? Start going to women churches? Our black pastors are doing us a disservice. They're not holding up to their part. And they're afraid of having empty churches. So they tell the women what they want to hear. Your choice, your body, a woman's right to choose. Choose not to have sex irresponsibly. How about that? It's on the men. No, it ain't. You're the vessel. He's inseminating you. It's your body. You're right. All the law's on your side. So with that said, you're going to let a man show up and do anything to you and then blame it on him? And we know this is not happening in wedlock. Yeah, there are women that are having abortions in wedlock, and that's even more egregious. You married in front of God and everyone else, took an oath to be with someone so that you can merge and start a family and have children. And at some point, because you may have 1 or 2 children and you don't want any more, me. A married woman having an abortion is an abomination. Unless it's for medical reasons, to save the life of the woman in birth. I get that. We got to stop this, man. Our mentality is fucked up in our community. Our numbers have stagnated as far as the population in the United States, somewhere around 12, 13% since we've been here. That is not natural. Do you think that that 42% that our women abort children is natural? It happened organically? Or do you think that that was engineered? Do you think there are powers that be that would be happy that we aborted our babies and we kept our population growth? There's no society in history that didn't increase over time. In fact, the opposite suggests that that society is dying. It is stale. But that's not the case with us. Women are getting pregnant. They're aborting the babies. And 80% of them are having babies out of wedlock. Do you think just looking at that alone, does that suggest a healthy community? And I know you're trying to find a way to blame the men. The men gonna get theirs. We've been getting ours over the past 70 years, but this falls squarely in the laps of the women. You control sex. You control childbirth. And all the rights were given to you in this country to do so, before or after. You could choose abortion. You could choose adoption. All kinds of stuff women have. The only choice a man has is no choice at all when a woman decides. She's deciding for him, his half. What if I don't want a child? What if I do want the child? It's irrelevant for a man. And I'm going to say this, man, before I go, because I always end with a story. And I'm no stranger to this scenario. I've had a couple of women that I've dated in my early 20s, that went for abortions. My girlfriend's in college, a couple of them, over a span of maybe about between 8 years or so. So we live this and we watch our women, and we have no choice in the matter. Did I want my children? I wanted all my children. I come from Trinidad, big families. My grandfather and grandmother had 10 children. One didn't make it. But we grew up with a household that was so full and rich that guess what my goal was? To have at least 5 children. I wanted to have as many children as I can have and afford. But what does it say about a woman? And I'm coming back to this. What does it say about what she feels about the man, the possibilities, and also her future, what it would be? All these women were in college when I was in college. All these women had abortions because they wanted to not stop their academic pursuits. And we know that children completely can change the trajectory of your life. And I would have been a whole lot of money, I would have been a whole lot less financially fit. And but you never know. You never know what would have happened based on that. Men are spurred into action when childbirth is announced. We know we have to do more. We know we have to provide for another. And something about that invigorates and puts us in a state of mind that allows us to surmount obstacles that we probably would not have. So maybe my oldest would have been in the 30s right now. Something to reflect on. Are women out of control? You guys got to stop, man. 42% trying to win at this shit? Trying to win at abortion? Huh? You trying to win the big pot? You throwing your dice? And talk about how manipulative and controlling black men are. You're letting the whole country run you. and you don't even know it. Having you killing our children at an astronomical rate. And then want to claim that we don't have benefits, we don't have things in our community, and when it comes to raising a child, we're so socioeconomically, deprived. Okay, well then poor people shouldn't be having sex. I mean, what the fuck? If you don't know how to protect yourself in that circumstance, so your final fix to make sure that is to kill the child? That's what we've come up with because of that? Because we're socioeconomically challenged? No, what's happening is that we're making it okay for women to go and do whatever they want to do. In white society, understanding female behavior and nature, all they had to do was separate y'all from us, and you guys would run yourself into the ground. Completely. And as long as they kept giving you a little bit, then you take what they've given you. And fuck us. It wasn't like this in Africa. In all successful societies that this globe, this planet, this earth has ever known from human beings, the Asians, the Chinese, they don't play that shit. The Muslimic and Islamic communities, they don't play that shit. They've been around for eons. America is brand new, and they're going to be here way longer than we are. Why? One of the main reasons is that they didn't let their societies turn into gynocentric, simping societies. The men basically rolling over on their back and acting like bitches. I have respect for those communities, those societies. They're so ancient, it's ridiculous. The African continent. And anywhere you find where men impose control, limits on women, you have a thriving, long-lasting society. Thousands of years. We ain't made it to that, and we're not going to. Not this current iteration of it. Stop doing this shit, ladies. Respect yourself. So you give yourself before you're married, and then you kill the child. You know what that does to you? It makes you unfit. And then want to blame all types of psychological damage on men when you're doing this shit to yourselves. You guys need us. And if you didn't need us, why are you always to hell talking about us? You don't love us, don't want us, don't need a man. And stop fucking talking about us. And stop getting pregnant by us. Ron Raphael, Black Gen X Man. I'm done.